Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's video. I'm really excited to talk about books. I haven't actually talked about books on my channel, I think. And I've been reading a lot more and I thought it would be a good video. I thought it would be fun. And I asked you guys on Instagram if you wanted to see what I had read so far this year because some of you guys will come talk to me about books on Instagram, which I love. Please come do that. I love talking about books and movies. I feel like it's something I don't talk about a ton. I kind of sneak it in where I can. The day I'm filming this video, there's a blog post going live about 10 books to read when you need an escape. I will link that in the description box below. But I asked you guys on Instagram if you wanted to know what I'd read so far this year, kind of like a mini review. I feel like we could do this a couple of times a year. I normally set like a Goodreads goal for 50 and I'll hit a patch typically, especially when I need to like re-energize myself, recenter myself, like readjust all of the energy around me and all of my emotions. I go into like a book hole. It's very common for me and I can always tell. Normally I hit this burnout like at September. What happens is the beginning of my year is like chill and calm, and then come September I'm like, I need to not talk to anybody. I need to like hunker down. This year has been a bit different, obviously, with the state of the world and traveling less and just I'm trying to adjust how I approach life in general. I have been reading more. So I thought we would go through the list of what I've read so far this year. I feel like I'm out of breath. Whew. I thought we'd go through the list so far this year, and I'm gonna skip the ones that are like a little much for the internet. I know people read them, obviously. They exist. I will link my Goodreads down below so you can go and like nitpick through them, but I probably am over the count that I'm at right now, which is at 17, because some of these books I've either read before, so I like kind of skimmed in certain bits, or they're books that maybe I was finishing from last year. Some of them have taken me a little bit longer. Some are kind of work related, so they tie into like my everyday life. There are a few that I'm still reading, and that's typically, you know, either on digital. I'll go through all the places that I get books to be able to read this amount and not spend like bukus of money constantly. I mean, I don't mind spending money. I enjoy putting money out into the universe, but we'll talk about that in a second. There are affordable ways to do it. So I've been trying to be really intentional about supporting more local bookstores, especially over the last year. As my income's increased, I really want to be intentional about giving back and being like intentional with where I put it forward. So there's an app called Libre FM. I will link it down below. I think that's it. And it's kind of like an alternative Audible, and you can select a local bookstore that it supports, as well as Bookshop is one of my favorite places to get books. If I'm buying hardback books, they do have digital copies, but they don't work with Kindle. So if you're like a Kindle person, that's not necessarily going to be your best bet. Or I go to my independent bookstore and shop. But I also do use Kindle Unlimited. That ends up being something that inevitably I just use regularly by default of certain authors that I love. Their books end up being free with Kindle Unlimited, and it's like $10 a month. So that's an option. I have Audible. I'm slowly phasing myself out of Audible with the intentions of going for the like Audible version that supports local bookstores. So currently kind of working through all of that, because I'm not somebody who listens to a ton of audiobooks all of the time. I really like to like be engulfed in my reading. I have one or two that's on the go, but I don't get through them enough that it's worth it for me at this point. So let's get into what I've read so far this year. All right, first book up is Friends Without Benefits, Knitting in the City, number 2 by Reid. I love the entire Knitting in the City series with the exception of book 5. I haven't finished book 5. I started it, I kind of lost energy there, but it's essentially there's 7 people in this thing, I think 6 or 7, I can't remember. I think it's 6 women who are in this knitting group, and they all, you know, have their different love stories, have their different journeys, all very sassy, all very independent, all very like smart women. It's a good time if you like a rom-com, if you like just seeing like women supporting each other through all of the crazy shenanigans. Friends Without Benefits is great. All of them are great. If you like need to cry, book number 3 or 4 is it for you. But yeah, I love the entire series. I just happened to reread the second book at the beginning of the year. I think I had reread the 6th book and maybe the 3rd book before we hit the 2021 spectrum. Becoming by Michelle Obama. That book has taken me a very long time to finish. It is such a beast. And there are a few that are like that I have been taking my sweet time to get through. So like Matthew McConaughey's book is on the nightstand. Mariah Carey's book is somewhere in the house. I bought it on audiobook and I've been getting through it in little chunks because these stories are really heavy. And if there's a lot going on and I really want to sit with what's happening, it just takes some time. And Michelle's book is packed. It's a lot. So I loved it. It was great. I learned a lot. It was really nice to be able to see that side of it and just the experience of it. And I feel like we don't talk a lot about the things that women have to adjust to be able to stay in these relationships of power. Like, it's great, but you know, you come in as a person with power, you come in as an independent human, and then you are a part of something else. So it was really nice to like see her side of it and read that. I intend to buy Brock's book, but I'm sure that that's going to be like hardback. I started on audiobook and I knew that I just wasn't in the headspace where I was actually going to get through it, so it's going to be a hardback for me. The Book of Life, All Souls Trilogy number 3. If you've watched Discovery of the Witches season 1 and season 2 is airing right now. This is the 3rd book, which is what I'm assuming will be the 3rd season. The 2nd season is the 2nd book. So after the first few episodes of the 2nd season came out, I went back in and read book number trace. The Viscount Who Loved Me. Bridgerton is number 2. There are several Bridgerton books on here, and they're all, the number 1 is not on there because I read that as soon as I finished the 1st season. So I've loved them so far. I'm currently listening to book number 5, so that's going to take me a bit longer to get through. But number 2, number 3, and number 4 are on this list, and they've all been very different. All of the books are very individually focused on certain relationships, so I feel like I can't talk. But you get really like diving into each person's like own little world. It's so much more expansive with the show, and I'm very much a person who believes that like books and TV shows are a different art. When you're adapting, there's certain things that do work the same, there's certain things that don't work the same, there's certain things that you need to fill in the gaps for. I love the show. 100% love the show. But 2, 3, and 4 focus on Anthony's relationship, focuses on Colin's relationship, and it focuses on, why am I forgetting? I want to call him the wrong thing. Benedict, yeah. So we're going down the line now. So we've got A through D in the Bridgerton gang, their books under my way. So far, I really loved, I think one of my favorites is number 4, Romancing Bridgerton, which is Penelope and Colin's story. And I'll be curious to see how they adapt all of these things, because quite a few of the people have not been brought in as characters in the show yet. And it looks like they're going to focus on the 2nd season as the 2nd book. So I think they're all great so far. I'm really enjoying reading them. And book number 5 is fun. I mean, it's completely off the rails, a little bit different because Eloise is just her own little gang. But if you enjoyed the show, you will like the books. Dirty Sexy Money, the Unauthorized Biography of Kris Jenner by Cathy Griffin. This was fascinating and a little bit sad, I'm not gonna lie. I love Kardashians. I'm a Kardashian fan. I'm not like a crazy Kardashian fan, but I respect women who can create these massive empires and build these legacies and do it to the extent that they have. But this is essentially the story of Kris from like the beginning and not told by Kris. And it's very interesting to see the dynamic and the power grabbing and like just her journey and what's kind of developed and how she's become this person and like the story behind the story. So I am always curious to know how people who have gone big and gone to these places have done it and their mindsets and just the timing of it. And a lot of times you'll get people who have chased something that like nobody else thought that they should do, or they've just been really adamant and they haven't given a shit about anybody else. So it was very fascinating, I'm not gonna lie. If you're curious about them at all and you want more of a, I guess it's more unbiased. It was written by journalists, so it's very like kind of step back, no hold, like there are no punches held. I think that's the right phrase. Check it out. Rich as money, more money than you know what to do with my man Francis. I don't know how to say that without cursing a ton, and I'm trying to be a channel that doesn't do that. I actually have the hardback copy over there. I'm going to do a blog post on this book because I think that people are curious about it. And if you aren't familiar with Amanda's work, this is a great intro to Amanda and her work and her mindsets and just all of her stuff. Her Instagram is a great space. She offers all sorts of levels of increments and really like just, I feel like changing your mindset around money. That's been a big thing for me in the last few years, is wanting to do things differently, but knowing that like we are a product of our environment, we are a product of who we spend time with, we are a product of who we've learned from. And so now the older you get, the more it's your responsibility to unlearn things and to relearn them in a way that honors you, or maybe honors who you are and kind of aligns with the person that you want to become. So Rich AF is one of my favorite books. I've already gone through it once. Now that I bought the hardback copy, I'll go through it again because there's a lot of like journaling prompts and other things that come with it. But it's really great, and just shifting your mindset like overall. And if you are somebody who believes in like law of vibration, law of attraction, just you attract what you put out in the world, you'll definitely vibe with this. But even still, it's really, Amanda has like a religious background. It's very fascinating. I would recommend it. I know it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I love it. It's been a game changer for me. So yeah, next two books are Bridgerton 3 and 4, and then we get to one of the more off the wall books, which you can go check out on Goodreads. The Not-Outcast by Tijan. So I love Tijan. I went down a Tijan rabbit hole. I want to say 2016 is when I first discovered Tijan. And I've gotten a few other friends obsessed. And like a lot of these books, when it comes down to it, like I could tell you PG-13, rated R, but when it comes to a book, there's no like alluding to anything. Sometimes they allude to things. Sometimes the scenes are kind of, they're there. They're like, we're not as like crazy on the 50 Shades side of things if you're like going for red rooms and all of that situation, but I love Tijan. So this book was the first book though where I feel like she's really dived into mental health. She's done it with a couple of other books, and obviously if you've looked at any of the other thumbnails on my channel, you know that mental health is kind of my jam. Now for my girls out there who already deal with anxiety, and you're like, this might be a little triggering for you, only because she's really great at writing through certain moments as her character is experiencing a panic attack. It's just, there's a lot happening, and it's a very real and raw story. It's great. I would recommend. Loved it. But I'm a big Tijan fan, and I read through a lot of her stuff like once a year. I kind of flip through the catalog and go through it. Florid, the Ward Sisters. So there are several of these books, all by Karla Sorensen, that are like in the same bubble, and Florid is one of them, as well as Focused, which is book number 1, and then The Bombshell Effect and The Marriage Effect were the books that were kind of in the series prior to that. You can read all of these separately, and they each have their own story, but you'll kind of pick up on the cues that like you're missing other people's stories as you go through it. So Florid was the more recent one of the Ward Sisters. I'm really excited for the next one. And it is about one of the sisters who goes to London, meets a guy, gets pregnant, he's an athlete, you know, all the things that go with that. But it's a romantic comedy and really setting boundaries and acknowledging what you need in a healthy relationship and what that looks like. And yeah, it's just a lot of different love stories. So Florid, The Marriage Effect, Bombshell Effect, and Focused are all, oh, and The X Effect. Bombshell, The X Effect, and Marriage Effect are one series, and then you get into the Ward Sisters, which is Focused and Florid. So again, all rom-coms, all athlete rom-coms, they're all kind of intertwined in their own way. Like you'll see mentions of characters and they are there and you'll appreciate that they make an appearance. This is the one thing I love about books, is that you can like low-key just throw somebody in and like have them say hi, and it's not like a whole big deal because it's a book. You just write it in. And then the last two that are on the list for this year so far is Sterling. It's Carolina Reapers number 6 by Samantha Whiskey. Samantha has so many athlete novels. It's a little ridiculous. Like sis can churn out an athlete novel, and Sterling is the most recent. She had one whole series of hockey ones, and then she's got another set that's like hockey and football, and they kind of intertwine like this, and Sterling is the latest in the current hockey one. They're all entertaining. They're not all going to be like the craziest thing ever, but if you like a good like rom-com athlete romance, you get that one. And then The Villain, Boston Bells number 2. I honestly don't know why I finished this book. It was quite toxic. A bit sad. I don't know that I would call it complete rom-com, but like I pushed through it, and then I had like this weird energy the next day. So I would say that like I gave it I think I gave it 3 stars. I will tell you now, I did. I gave it 3. So if you ever go to my Goodreads page and you look at my ratings for something, if it's a 3-star, it's, I finished it, I don't know why I finished it. It was enough that I was intrigued to finish it, but I don't like absolutely hate it, but I definitely don't love it, and I don't know that I would recommend it to anybody else. That is what a 3-star rating is for me, and I gave that one a 3 star. So I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, those are the books that I've read so far this year. It's a little more grouped together than I thought it would be, but I feel like because they're all kind of in the same genre, really what happens, or at least with specific authors, is like I'll find one and I really like that particular author, so I'll like pick a book and then I keep kind of working through that author's little bubble right now. So like this morning I popped back into the Marina Zapata bubble and I love her stuff, and again I go through it like once a year. Sometimes it's like me skimming through certain bits and only reading certain things that I want to read, whatever kind of like floats my boat, but these have all been good so far. The other things that I'm reading right now that I have not finished yet that I will talk about because I'm enjoying them enough to talk about them. So currently reading right now, as in like it's gonna take me a minute. To Sir Philip with Love. So far I'm really enjoying it. It's entertaining enough that I'm gonna keep going with it. I'm a little sad that it's on audiobook, but it's like a nice, you know, when I'm out and I remember that I have it, I get kind of caught back in it. So it's good when I'm on the go. I don't really listen to podcasts right now. I feel like I've really pulled in my boundaries on what kind of content I take in, and it's just been so limiting with the last year. Like I think we're all having a time getting through this season, and it's not always easy to check our energy before we go into a situation, so I've just had to be like, you know what, we're gonna take a break from like everything. The Proposal by Jasmine Guillory is cute. Very like low-key rom-com. Haven't finished it. I got it from the library. The library is also a great place to rent books if you don't have your app downloaded for your local library. That's also a good option. The Sweet Spot, How to Accomplish More by Doing Less. I am enjoying this. I feel like it's one of those with business books, and I'm reading more because my word for 2021 is expansion. I try to take everything kind of with a grain of salt. Like, okay, this would apply to me. This is like gonna sit over there. We're gonna like make it work. And this one has been interesting. I'm enjoying what I'm learning so far, but it definitely pulls from other books that you might have read if you've gotten into self-help and habits and things the last few years. Invent and Wander, The Collected Writings of Jeff Bezos. That's slowly getting through that. It's really a lot of his like notes to shareholders, so I will update you guys on that. How to Win Friends and Influence People is interesting. I'm finding it intriguing. It's not life-changing, but it's good to know. Lady in Waiting, My Extraordinary Life in the Shadows of the Crown. This is about the woman who was the handmaid to Princess Margaret. So it's been interesting to read her story, especially because like watching Bridgerton at the same time, and then obviously with The Crown coming out with their latest season, seeing just how marriages will happen and the fact that it's still more recent than we feel like is a little bit crazy to me. So slowly working through that. Breath, the New Science of Lost Art by James Nestor. That's been fascinating, still working through it, but the fact that there's science that shows that like breathing through our nose is a lot healthier for us rather than breathing through our mouth. Whole different thing. Open Book by Jessica Simpson. Slowly getting through that, but it's heavy. Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Still working through that. And then The Meaning of Mariah Carey by Mariah Carey. Still working through that. So I have quite a few that I'm still working through, and when I do my next update on what I've read so far this year, I will let you know. But please feel free to come DM me on Instagram, talk about books if you guys have questions about anything I've read or any plot lines. I love talking about books with people. Sometimes I don't remember things, but that's fine. Let me know if you've read any of Tijan's stuff in the comments below. But yeah, if you want to stay up to date on all of the books that I'm reading or anything that like I'm breaking down, I'm trying to be more intentional about breaking down really popular books for like takeaways on the blog. So Rich AF, there's a few other ones that are going to be coming up in the next month or so, next few weeks. Be sure to subscribe to the newsletter below. We only send out an email once a week, but it's just a really easy way to round it up for you so you know what's happening, and then you don't have to worry about being on Instagram or missing something on stories because there's so much content coming out everywhere that the newsletter is the best way to do it. But yeah, I love you guys. You matter to me. It is a good day to have a good day, and I hope you all have a beautiful day and you get to read a whole lot this weekend wherever you are. Bye guys.